So we're here on the farm, and are there chickens right now back there? Yeah, so they're chickens, they're happy chickens, right? They can walk around. I used to think that if you buy cage-free eggs, that means like chickens like this, right? No. Cage-free eggs. It's a little bit of a trick, because in order to call the eggs cage-free, the chickens cage-free, then what they need to do, as far as I understand, I've never seen this, but this is what I'm told, is that they need to open the cage for a certain amount of time during the day, and then they can close it again. And if they open the cage, then it's cage-free. The problem is that the chickens don't leave the cage. Why don't they leave the cage? Because they're conditioned to be, because most of the time they're in the cage, so their nervous systems are conditioned to be in that cage, and they're not noticing that they can leave and that would be something desirable to do. Perhaps even if they were in the cage and used to being in the cage, perhaps if the door was open longer, then that impulse for freedom would have time to blossom, and they would start to notice. They would, like the way life does, it kind of explores, it reaches out. Perhaps they would start to notice, oh, I can leave the confines of this cage. But instead, because the fact of the door being open, they label it as cage-free. And in a sense, this is just like many of us, because we just came from Pesach. And what do we say on Pesach at the Seder? Avedim hayinu, we were slaves. Ve'ata b'nei chorim, the song says. But now we are free. We are free. Are we really free, or are we just cage-free? Are we just labeling as free? You may have had the experience of being at a Passover Seder where you say those words and it's a label, and it's a nice label. It sounds good to assert. But is there a space, is there enough time for your nervous system to start to notice that the door is open? And the truth is that cage door is always open, and yet we tend to reinforce the experience of the cage. What is the cage? The cage, in this metaphor, is meaning our thoughts and our feelings. It's our identity. It's what our mind is occupied with. You wake up in the morning, the mind starts going, what needs to happen today? What am I doing? All about context, all about time, all about identity, which is all good and fine. It's good to be in that cage sometimes. Sometimes it feels nice, feels secure to be held in that identity. But also, not only is the door open, not only is there a space to leave the cage, but actually, in a very literal sense, you are that space. You are the space not just to go out, but the space beyond, without any border or limit. And that space is the field of consciousness right now, within which the cage exists, within which your thoughts and feelings are happening. And perhaps as you're considering this right now, you can not just hear it theoretically, like, oh, am I supposed to believe in this or not, but actually look at it for yourself right now. Actually notice that there is noticing happening, that your awareness is not bound by your thoughts, that your thoughts can subside and you can be with this moment, and there's a spaciousness there. Avedim hayinu ve'ata b'nei chorim. Avedim hayinu we were slaves, meaning that that sense of limitedness comes from the past, from constantly bringing the past, generating the past into our consciousness. But ata b'nei chorin, in the now, in the present, when the mind, you don't have to do anything special, you just relax. When the mind relaxes, then there can be this sense of chorin, this sense of freedom. And it really takes no time to notice this. But like the chicken, it does take time to actually go out of the cage and start living your life that way. It takes time. It's a process. To question, to ask, this thing that I'm about to do, is it coming from my freedom, my sense of freedom, or is it just an old pattern that I can do away with, that I don't need anymore? How much consciousness can we bring day by day to move from simple liberation, which in a way is the easy part? Okay, you're free. It's just a fact. It's not an achievement. But to move from liberation to revelation, to know from that freedom how to draw forth your words and your actions in such a way that it emanates from freedom rather than from the past, than from neurosis, rather than from resentment, or just stuckness, just a simple repetitiveness. This period we're in now, the Sefirat HaOmer, points to this question. It elicits the question. 7 times 7 days, 49 days from Pesach to Shavuot, from liberation to revelation. Each day a unique light with unique qualities. Chesed, the root of them all. Chesed, the place without which none of the others make sense. Loving kindness, benevolence, just here to help something good to happen. Chesed. It's wonderful to think this, and it sounds good, it sounds idealistic. But of course, inevitably, we experience things that are the opposite of loving, that are the opposite of benevolent, and that can ensnare us, that can trigger the opposite within ourselves. And so we need something else. Besides saying yes to love, we also have to know how to say no to be taken over by the opposite of love. A Zehu Gibor, who is strong? HaKovesh et Yitzro, the one who can master their own impulses, who is not a slave to their own impulses. Givora, strength. And then if you can do that, and you're mastering your impulses, then there can be a sense of equanimity, a sense of grace, something that's constant, even when different moods and different things happen, wonderful, terrible. But behind all that, there's this tiferet, this beauty, this inner grace. And if you can do that over time and really live in that way, then there's a sense of victory over time, victory over circumstance, and a connection instead with the eternal, that eternal beingness that's always here, Netzach, victory, eternity. And if you get that far, then you might just kind of realize, oh my God, what a blessing just to be. Just to be able to receive and practice these teachings. And there's a humility and a gratitude that can blossom naturally with that. Hod, humility, gratitude. And in this simple gratitude, there can be a joy of connection. In eros, even. A joy in eros with connecting with life as it is, with all of its beauty and its grotesqueness, there can be joy. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha, to live life with joy. And that's Yesod, foundation, because if you don't have joy, then all of the other stuff, no matter how profound, is going to seep away. Without any joy, you lose connection with all of it. It's foundation, Yesod. So keeping that connection with joy, staying connected with it, then there can arise a natural trust. Trust in how things are unfolding. A trust that transcends intellect. Perhaps reality has its own end game. And if we work on ourselves to bring forth the best, then we can trust that other things are working out as they're working out. And leave it at that. Malchut, kingdom, that the universe is a kingdom, a queendom of the divine. So this is the Sefirat HaOmer, the invitation to receive a new light every day, to question, to let go of perhaps the way we were yesterday. A student came to Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev and said, in the Talmud it says that a perfect person, a tzaddik, someone who's been blameless since they were born, like the baby comes out of the womb, the baby is blameless, then starts growing up and gets involved with all kinds of mishigas. But the tradition says there are actually some people who don't get involved with the mishigas. They remain blameless their whole lives. I don't know if it's true. That's what they say. And so the student said that the Talmud says that the blameless one cannot stand in the same place with the Baal Tshuva, meaning the person who has done many, many misdeeds, but has returned and has improved themselves. How can this be true? How can a person who's had so many misdeeds stand at a higher level than the person who is blameless? And Levi Yitzchak said, the person who is blameless is a person who isn't looking for something better, isn't looking for a new light. They consider they're okay and they leave it at that. The Baal Tshuva means someone who's always open to the new light that's coming every day. And so that kind of person has to see themselves yesterday as not as good as they could have been. May we all, every day, step into the place of the Baal Tshuva. Shabbat Shalom.